Hey, everybody, it's your girl Carla Renata here for the Curvy Critic episode 53. This beautiful Sunday, the last day of March, March 31st. All things Monkey Paw, the Highwaymen, Dumbo, and so much more, and a special guest co host. Stay right there. Wow, we're back. Hey, everybody. I'm so glad you took time out of your weekend to join me right here at the Curvy Critic with Carla Renata at Black Hollywood Live. This is episode 53. Oh my God, I can't. Every time I say something past 50, I'm like, are we really like 50s in? But yes, we're 50s in. This is episode 53. And because my boy Jordan Peele is absolutely killing it on the small and the big screen, we're going to do a little retrospective here on the Curvy Critic at Black Hollywood Live about all things monkey paw, as my good girlfriend Valerie Complex would like to say, who's going to be joining me in a little bit. But until that time for this show, we're going to talk about all things Monkey Paw. I'm going to talk about The Highwaymen, which is now streaming on Netflix with Kevin Costner and Woody Harrelson. Dumbo, some anniversaries like Romancing the Stone is celebrating year 35. Philadelphia Story is streaming in big theaters, and The Matrix, y'all, is celebrating 20 years in the theaters. Oh my goodness, it's been 20 years since we saw that major move with them bullets flying back. If you're on YouTube, you can see me leaning back just a little bit, but my back is hurting, so I ain't gonna lean back too much. Anyway, I crack myself up, and for those of you that know me, you know I do that all the time. So let's get right on into it. The Highwaymen. Now, this is a film that I saw at South by Southwest. And like I said, it is streaming on Netflix as of yesterday, I believe. If you are a huge fan of the Bonnie and Clyde films or anything dealing with the Bonnie and Clyde legendary story, you're going to love The Highwaymen. I loved it because Kevin Costner's in it. And anybody that knows me knows that I have said here at Black Hollywood Live and every place else that if you are a sister in America, you kind of love Kevin Costner. And we've had a love affair with him since The Bodyguard. I'm just saying. And The Highwaymen is no different. But the Highwaymen deals with the Bonnie and Clyde saga from the Texas Rangers' perspective. Because apparently, when the first film was released, the one that got nominated for all the Oscars in 1967 and took one, and Estelle Parsons took one home, that film kind of made the Texas Rangers look like the Keystone Cops. They looked like they didn't know what they were doing. It was kind of comical. People were laughing, and the Texas Rangers were not amused. And Frank Hamer was the person, and his friend Manny Galt. They were the two that headed that whole posse that led to Bonnie and Clyde's demise. So they were not amused at all. And in Texas, especially in Austin, folk were feeling some kind of way about the fact that the Texas Rangers were being clowned in that movie. So Kevin Costner got together with director John Lee Hancock and Woody Harrelson, and the three of them produced this film that's on Netflix to tell this story from the Texas Rangers' point of view. It's a little more graphic than the 1967 version, and it tells it very perfectly from the Texas Rangers' point of view. I honestly, like I said, the only reason why I like the film is because Kevin Costner and Woody Harrelson and Kathy Bates are in it. It was a little bit of a slow burn for me until halfway through, and when it started to pick up was a moment where there's like a car chase in the middle of the desert, which was fabulously shot, by the way. From that moment until the end, I was all in 100%. But up until that moment, I kind of didn't care. And I'm like, I don't know. But I am intrigued and fascinated with the whole Bonnie and Clyde story. So there's that. So if you like Bonnie and Clyde, if you like Kevin Costner, Woody Harrelson, Kathy Bates. If you are a huge film fan of director John Lee Hancock and you spend most of your weekends streaming stuff on Netflix, then add The Highwaymen to your streaming list. Next up is Dumbo. Now, I never saw Dumbo. My mother says I did, but I honestly don't remember seeing Dumbo, and I don't know why. But I took my mom to the screening of it here in Hollywood, and my mother said that she remembered reading the book. I don't think she ever saw the film either. But what she does remember is the fact that this cute little elephant, it was so cute, had these ginormous ears, and that its mama it was separated from his mama, and it was emotional for my mother because my mother was separated from her mother when she was a kid. So that was a personal note from my mother that she connected with the film with. And for me personally, I personally connected with it because I had a dog named Spanky, and Spanky had shenanigans and was just the cutest little thing ever, and he passed away this week. So, but he hadn't passed away when I saw the film. So when I saw the film, all I could think about was Spanky and being separated from my little dude, and I got all emotional and was in an ugly cry and needed tissues and all that. But having seen it for the first time, I'm not afraid to admit that I was a blubbering mess. Those big old blue, pitiful little eyes sucked me right on in, and it captured me for the 2 hours that I sat in the El Capitan theater watching it. Okay, and it's directed by Tim Burton. It's starring Colin Farrell, Danny DeVito, Michael Keaton. And, this is the thing. I love Disney. I've said this about Disney 5,000 times here on the show. What I will say is this time around, I felt like adding big names to a story that's as universal as Dumbo didn't really make a difference in the storytelling or the production value of the film. I don't think that I think the CG with the elephant flying was really well done. It was shot beautifully. The costumes by Colleen Atwood are just perfection. And this is a film, like I said, that's directed by Tim Burton, but it's not as dark and as sinister as most of his films. And frankly, I'd be a little concerned if it was, because it's Dumbo, y'all. Like, little kids are going to see this. They don't need to be scared out of their mind. But Dumbo for me was just okay, and I hate to say that because I love Disney films, but it was just okay. But what I will say about it is that being a child at heart, I was enthralled. I was looking at a memory from a child's point of view of what that would feel like if someone or animal or human otherwise was detached or separated from someone that they loved, how that would feel. And that is what kind of sucked me into the story. And this is the this is the first of 5 live action animated films coming out by Disney, not including Aladdin, The Lion King, Kim Possible, and Maleficent. So if you want to see Dumbo, if you love that story as a child, you read that book, and you are a softie at heart like me, then you'll love it, and you'll have a great time. Take some kids with you. The kids in the audience with me had a wonderful time. So I want to introduce my guest co-host for today. I've been Skyping people in lately. Last time it was Katia Woods, and this time it is my girl Valerie Complex. And Valerie is a military veteran. She's a movie nerd like me, a freelance writer. She's a lover of Japanese animation. I love anime too, girl. Comics and all things and all things film. She is passionate about inclusion across all entertainment mediums, as am I. And she mostly writes for the playlist, but she's a freelancer. But we'll talk a lot more about Valerie as she gets on the line right now. What is up, my sister?
How you doing? Thank you
Was that you
for having
laughing?
me
Were you
on.
laughing at me introducing you?
I was cracking up because I was like, I don't usually get that kind of hype, so I was just excited. I was trying to hold it in. I was holding my butt cheeks tight, but I just let it out.
Cannot stand you right now. You are such a fool. I
I
love
just
you
let it
for
out.
it. I love you for it though. So let me just tell the people how we met. I think we first met at, was it Toronto?
Tiff,
Yeah,
it was
okay.
Tiff. Yeah,
We first met at the Toronto Film Festival last year in 2018, where we were partying till the break of dawn.
I've known, but I see the thing is, I've known about you and your work for like the last 2 years. But we
Really?
didn't, yeah, but we didn't meet because a lot of people put me on. They were like, because I had put out a call a while ago and I was like, who are the Black women who are talking about film? And your name is always the first to pop up.
Oh, wow. I was not
So I've
aware. That's
known,
kind of cool.
yeah, so I've known about your work and followed your work for a while. We just didn't meet in person until TIFF.
Oh, okay. So I'm glad we met in person. I really am because we partied to the break of dawn. It was great.
Yeah.
Katia's in the chat room with us, so say hey to Katia.
What's up, Kati? We hung out. a little bit at South by Southwest,
Yeah, we
and
did.
yeah,
We
she's
did.
tripped.
I love Katia. Katia is great. She was here with me a couple of weeks ago and we were talking about film. But this is what I want to create here over at the Curvy Critic. When Scott Menzel is not here with me, I want to bring in my sisters that are film lovers, that are influencers, that are film geeks like me so that we can have a conversation on the air and support and lift each other up, because if we don't do it for ourselves, nobody else is going to do it. So I have a
Right.
right, so I have a platform here, and what better way to use it than to support others like me. So that's my
I
soapbox
think you're
spiel for the
doing
day.
great work, and I'm really happy to be a part of it.
Oh, I'm so glad you came on. I really am. So let's talk about this. So I wanted to do, because I'd seen what you've been posting on social media, particularly on Twitter. And I
Hmm.
saw that you are a big Jordan Peele fan like I am. And let me just preface this by saying I've said here 5 zillion times how much I hate horror movies. I do not like horror films. I don't like watching them. I don't like going to them. And I really don't like talking about them. I really don't. But I don't. I'm just going to say that, because if I didn't say it and people that have been watching me do this for a minute are going to be like, okay, she a hypocrite. No, I'm not. I stand by what I said and I'm saying it again. I don't like horror movies. But what I do like is Jordan Peele.
Hmm.
So, having said that, I remember everybody was Get Out, Get Out, Get Out, Get Out, because Get Out premiered at South by Southwest in 2017, right? And
It
every
did.
and
Oh,
everybody was
that's
like, "Oh my
right.
God, Get Out is amazing! You've got to see it." I'm like, "Is it a horror movie?" And they were like, "Yes." I'm like, "I will never see it." Like, I will never go see it. I will
Oh,
never go see it. And then what happened was, um, when they started doing the Academy Awards push for it, somebody, I think AFCA had a screening, or somebody had a screening where Jordan and some of the cast members were going to be there. And I was in a play at the time where one of my cast members, Marcus Henderson, was in Get Out. He played the grandfather
hmm.
and he was in it. So between him, his wife, his friends, and everybody I know that had seen it, they finally dragged me to see it. And I was like, right. So there were moments where I was like, I don't know if I can hang. I don't know if I can take it. And then at the end of it, I was like, oh, okay, it is a horror film, but Jordan Peele's films, for me, teeter on the borderline of thriller. And I know people that are hardcore horror film fanatics are gonna hate the fact that I say that. They hate when you call a horror film a thriller or suspense. But his films kind of are that. And I think because I love thrillers and suspense in the lane of Alfred Hitchcockish type of things, and I
Right.
feel like Jordan's trajectory in the horror world is more on a Hitchcock vibe than some other people, I can kind of hang with him for that reason, you know?
I don't know. I think horror films can be both. I know there are a lot of horror fan purists out there,
Yeah.
but horror films can be both thrilling and horrific. If you take Halloween, for example, it's both. And it's almost Halloween is almost kind of noirish in the way that you're trying to figure out if the main character, played by Jamie Lee Curtis, is going to make it. So horror is not just one thing.
See, and
And I
that's why
think,
I'm talking to you, because Halloween, yet again, is another film I will never be seeing. I ain't seen nan one of them, and I won't.
well, it's a part of a different, like, there are subgenres within the genre.
Mm-hmm.
You have body horror, you have monster horror, you have psychological horror thrillers. So there are different levels, and there's really something, just like any genre, there's something for everyone, right?
Yeah.
Like you were previously talking about, Dumbo is just one of those that might just be good for kids. You know, Disney doesn't always release things that cater to everybody, and that's fine too.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think that that's what's good about, or what's great about Jordan Peele, is that his films always seem to be accessible,
Mm-hmm.
even to those who are not big fans of the horror genre. Like my sister doesn't like horror at all, but she saw Get Out.
Mm-hmm.
But once people heard about Us, his new film, and how that's closer to the genre of horror,
Yeah. It really
um,
it really was. Because
it turned a lot of folks off.
really? I hadn't
At least
heard
my
that.
sister. It turned my sister off. She was like, "No, I think I'm gonna skip this one if it's more, has more horror elements in it, which it does." Then
Yeah,
she was
it
like,
does.
I'll wait." So
Yeah, I spent a whole lot of. I told you this at South by. I spent a whole lot of time watching that movie, peeping through my fingers, because
yeah,
I was full on like peeping through my fingers. Particularly, like one eye was completely closed, and then the other one was open. Girl, I'm not joking. One eye was completely closed, and then one eye was kind of like barely open, like slivered open, looking through the sliver of two of my fingers, like my index finger and the one next to it. And the person next to me, I think it was Trey. The two of us were peeping through our fingers. And Trey works for Shadow and Act. Trey Magnum. He works for Shadow and Act, and the two of us were peeping through our fingers. It was, if somebody had taken a picture, they would have laughed their buns off because it was pure comedy at us laughing. And then when us was over, we were kind of looking at it, going, "Okay, what did I just see?" Which was funny. It was funny because what happened was right after we kind of looked at each other and had that look on our faces, Jordan Peele came out to address the audience, and he said, "I see all of y'all got that, what the F look on your face." And I'm like, yeah, we kind of do. It
I
was,
was
yeah.
way in the back, being super loud. Like, I don't know. I'm not one for, I try to go to the movies and keep it together.
Hmm.
But I don't know. People in the back were just wilding out, and I just got swept up in the moment. And people were back there screaming and on and on, and it was like being on 125th Street going to the movies. Like, and that was a different vibe for a film festival. I've never been to South by Southwest, so
I
I
hadn't
wasn't sure
either.
what. Wasn't sure what to expect because I'm pretty sure the TIFF crowd wouldn't have been acting like that.
No,
But one
nor
of
the
the things that
Sundance crowd.
right, and I guess that's one of the things, and why South by Southwest is like my new favorite um, film festival because the openness. There's a lot. Um, there are people who are fans of films, and then there are people who are critics, and they mix together, and there's no hoity-toityness or anything like that there. Um,
Yeah.
so I really like that aspect of just being able to go to the movies and have an experience. I had interviewed Jordan Peele while I was at South by, and I
Lucky
don't know,
you.
lucky. Oh Lord, well, thanks, I guess.
Yes, yes, of course.
Thanks for the playlist. They were able to give me that access, but I was able to interview him, and I learned a lot of different things about the film, his intentions, what was intentional and what wasn't.
Ooh, do share.
Um, I think one of the biggest aspects that one of the things that was intentional was the creepy black child, which is something that we never see
Mm-mm.
in thriller or horror. You have Damien, you have Children of the Corn,
Yep.
the thrillers, you have stuff like The Good Son, The Bad Seed, and stuff like that. But there is no such thing as, and I'm working on an article with this. There's no such thing as like what it is like to be a black child and be creepy or menacing. What we see usually is, when we see black children, we see them in, more street situations where
Right.
it's gang violence or, they come from an abusive home. Um, Two horror films that I can remember that had black children in them, Candyman, well, three, Candyman, The People Under the Stairs, and Candyman Part Two, Farewell to the Flesh. So Part One, Part Two, and The People Under the Stairs.
Uh-huh.
But the way that he talks about, he says it was intentional for him to utilize black children and to, portray them in a way that was uncommon. And he really did a brilliant job. It was something that hit home for me personally.
Hmm.
Um, being as though I was the one that was, called creepy. And actually, I took my niece to see Us today. Right,
Oh,
my
how
niece
did she
is,
react to that?
she was begging for it because she is into that kind of stuff. She's 12, and I know people are going to say, well, it's not an appropriate movie to probably take a 12-year-old to, and you're right. But listen, when we all got indoctrinated into the horror genre, many of us were way younger than that.
Yes.
So um, she really enjoyed it. She was surprised by it. Didn't really scare her, but I think she liked the story. There was some moments where her mouth was wide open. But what I found interesting was something she said at the beginning, when the character young Adelaide, played by young actress Madison Curry, when we first see her,
Uh-huh.
she turns around with the Thriller shirt and the candy apple. My niece turns around and was like, "Wow, she reminds me of you." And I was like, "Okay, be quiet." But but I thought that I was like, "Okay, be quiet. The movie's playing." But I thought that was interesting. And young Adelaide is a character that sort of hit home. And I told Jordan Peele this, that it was a character that hit home for me. The creepiness,
Hmm.
um, you know, being a dark skinned child,
Mm.
um, you know,
Let's
you know,
talk let's talk about that for a second, because in both of his films, the black people that were used in the films, they were mostly darker hued black people, except for the one woman in Get Out who was the grandmother, the one who was like no no and crying. Her, she was
uh-huh.
the only person that was a little lighter skinned in that film, but most of his characters are darker hued black people, and I kind of love that. I
Yeah,
love
I
that.
think, you know, I was having this discussion the other day,
Hmm.
and people aren't probably going to like this, but I'm going to say it. It's a little controversial, but
Go ahead, knock it
Hollywood,
out.
Hollywood just has an obsession with otherness that I don't understand. Um, oftentimes we see many, if we're talking specifically about blackness in Hollywood, a lot of times we see, um, biracial actors and actresses as stand-ins. And well, stand-ins is not the right word. So I apologize. Let me take that back.
That's okay.
As we see a lot of that. They're lighter than a paper bag, lighter than a cardboard box. Then we see them with the 3C hair and everything like that. That's not to take away from anyone's blackness, not at all, because they are black, as well.
Yeah, I
But
mean,
it's something about
go ahead.
Hollywood that does. I don't know if it's the proximity to otherness or what, but Jordan Peele seems to dismiss that altogether, especially with him being biracial himself. He's just like, nope, we're gonna deal with these folks with darker hues, and I think a lot of that again has to do with the fact that that's something that's not common.
Absolutely. And I want to speak to this too. I saw on Twitter earlier this, I think it was earlier this week or maybe last week, that he typed his name in Korean online,
Hmm.
and that he did a whole press junket with some Korean press. Let me just say something. Jordan Peele is flipping the script and changing the game, excuse me, with the way that publicists and studios and Hollywood is dealing with secular press and mainstream press, because he has sat down and said, look, this is what him and Brie Larson, they have sat down and said, this is what we want to interview us for our projects, because this is our project and this is what we want to interview us, and this is the press that we want present. I heard through the grapevine that the majority of the press at his junkets for us were mostly people of color. And big ups and applause to you, Jordan Peele, because we get the shaft so many times, especially when it's a black film. There was a film that came out not too long ago, Little, that I'll be talking about next week, that I wasn't invited to that junket. I wasn't invited to those screenings. I'm like, this is a film where the three leads of the film are black women. I'm a black
Yeah,
woman. I'm a journalist. I'm a critic. Why was I not invited? Why did I have to
right.
send an email and say, "Hey, here I am over here. Could you hook a sister up?" And when I did that, they graciously obliged and hooked me up. But like, why do I have to keep doing that? Why do I have to keep doing that? And then, they'll set a slot aside for some middle-aged white dude who could care less about Little, who could care less about these three female leads, and give them a slot and let them interview them all day long. But for somebody like me, they go, no. But that's a whole nother conversation, child. I hadn't opened up a whole can of worms. Let's keep talking about Jordan Peele, because we'll go on a whole nother tangent, and I'm not really trying to do that today.
Well, no, his campaign was great. With the Us First screenings, and then at South by Southwest opening it up Writing for the playlist has been a blessing, but I think a lot of times, it's been easier because it's not like it's sort of quote unquote like a mainstream outlet. So people are like, okay, are more open than when I was writing for smaller or more niche websites.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't as open. A lot of it is a numbers and name game, and that's unfortunate. And I've worked with other critics to try to level the playing field, and so far, things seem to be improving, even if rather slowly, at least at film festivals.
Yeah, you're
Um,
absolutely right. At the film festivals, you're absolutely right. We have been included. This for the first time since I've started. I was invited to Sundance. I was invited to South by. I was invited to Tribeca. I was invited to TIFF, and it was wonderful to be invited. You know what I'm saying? It was
right,
wonderful to be invited, and it was wonderful to have the film festivals work with you on trying to coordinate press with you so that you could get those interviews. Like Tiff knocked it out of the box because I found myself in a room where I did a roundtable with Bradley Cooper, Lady Gaga, Elliott, and Anthony Ramos for A Star Is Born. And this was before it had hit nationwide release. That was huge for somebody like me. And they were so gracious and they were so nice. And I did a really good job reporting on that. So my point in bringing it up or even talking about it in the first place, and thank you for like opening the door to it, is the fact that not everybody that is at a secondary outlet or a freelancer or a blogger or whatever the case may be is not worthy of being able to do that coverage, because some of us actually do really good quality work and some of us have journalism degrees like moi. You know what I
right.
mean? Some of us, I mean, I have the credentials to back it up. So when I get slighted like that, that's mainly why I get annoyed, because I'm being slighted and I have the credentials to back it up. I'm not just Joe Schmo off the street wanting to be in a room with a celebrity. I could care less that they're a celebrity. Them being a celebrity ain't doing nothing for me. It's not paying my mortgage. It's not paying my car note. It's not putting any food on my table. But I'm a lover of film. And if I'm a lover of film and and the people that go in the process of making the films, whether it be the stars, the producers, the directors, the costume designers, the sound engineers, whatever that is, I want to be able to, at least have the opportunity to speak with them and let the audience that I serve here at Black Hollywood Live and over at my site, thecurvyfilmcritic.com, be open
Hmm.
to those conversations and to that information. Because some of the things that I'm told, I've never seen it anyplace else. So,
Right, right.
you know what I mean?
And the thing is a little sidebar. I don't want to get it twisted. Like, these film festivals didn't just come up with this idea. Like,
No.
I actually sat down with a couple of other film critics and came up with a proposal for this to happen.
Yeah, I did
Um,
too. I sat down with the Me Too people. I sat
I,
down with the Me
I
Too people and we sat down and we discussed, what was going to be the most effective way to make it more inclusive from a POC point of view. And I, expressed my concerns and what I thought would make a difference there. And some of those things were implemented and some of them weren't. But the fact that, people like Me Too, people, whoever it was that contacted you, that whoever these people were that sat down and made a conscious effort to go, hey, let's talk to these critics, let's talk to these reporters, let's talk to these journalists, these freelancers, these bloggers, and see what we can do to help them help us. Because at the end of the day, we're not getting paid. We're not
a
getting
lot of us
paid
are
for
not.
this. You know what I mean?
No.
So you're not giving me a paycheck. So what I say about your movie or about your studio is, if especially if it's positive, is not because you line my pockets with some green. So let's be clear about that.
Right, 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 right. And I just, shout out to Brie Larson and Angela Robinson for really, taking things to task, especially over at Time's Up, because those are the people who I was in contact with when this was all happening.
Me too.
And they
Yeah.
actually, like, you know, came through on their word. That's just a little sidebar. But going back to Jordan Peele, what I
Yes.
think is, I think that he really was in tune with that and listened to that
Mm-hmm.
and sort of tapped into it, in a way that I hope others follow suit. They probably won't, But, we can only hope that they follow suit and allow us to, you know, be more involved in this, especially in the things that, are a part of our demographic. Like I remember, before everything sort of took off at film festivals, like Sundance was like crazy, and it was hard to get access to Sorry to Bother You. And Boots Riley and Tessa Thompson had to speak up, like, what the heck? Like, you know, we're at our, he's at his own screening, and it's nothing but a bunch of white folks. Now, there's nothing wrong with that if that's what's being covered, but there should be a mix of everybody. It really should be
Exactly.
50-50 across the board.
Exactly.
50 men, 50% women, and,
Exactly.
all kinds of people.
Exactly. So let's be, and I'm gonna say this, and then we're gonna move on to the next one. But let me be very clear when I say this. When I say inclusive, I don't mean just black people. I mean women. I mean disabled. I mean Latino. I mean
Trans,
Asian.
you know.
I mean anybody that is a person who is non Caucasian that goes to watch a movie. And let's be clear about this too. The majority of the movie going public is split between blacks, Latinos, and Asians. That's a statistic. Look it up. You can find it anywhere. And that is a fact. So it's uber annoying when you go to a junket or when you go to a screening or when you go to a premiere or a screening at a film festival like Sundance, like you brought up, Valerie, and you see what you see. But like you said, Time's Up, Me Too, and some other people, Tessa Thompson, Brie Larson, Jordan Peele, everybody's working toward changing that and switching it up. And let me also be clear when I say, I'm not saying that people that aren't people of color should be xed out. That's not what I'm saying. So let me be clear. I don't want anybody coming for me on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify talking some smack because I said what I said. Let me be very clear about what I'm saying. All I'm saying is that there is more than one seat at the table, and let all of those seats be a huge diaspora of people like we see when we walk out our doors every day. And on
Right.
that, I'm going to leave it alone. So let me just talk about, you know what I'm saying? So let me just say this. This is why I want to talk about Jordan Peele and the importance of his work today, because Jordan Peele came on the scene being known for his spot on impersonation of Barack Obama on Key and Peele with Keegan Michael Key. And they became,
Mhm.
and he did 10 episodes as Dr. Brian on Children's Hospital. He was an actor. He was acting. And like most actors of color, myself being one of them, the roles are very far, few, and in between. And you can do one of two things. You can either sit back and complain about the work that you're not being given or the opportunity to go in for the work that you would like to be seen for, or you can create your own opportunities. And this brother has come along at the right time, creating the right opportunities for himself in a genre where you don't see people of color being present. You just don't. So
Right.
he has opened that door and did it. And not for nothing, but in addition to Get Out and Us and The Twilight Zone, which we're going to talk about in a few seconds. He is also the executive producer for The Last OG, which stars Tracy Morgan and Tiffany Haddish. He was the executive producer for the docu-series that I talked about here, about Lorena Bobbitt. He was also one of the producers on Black Klansman, which Spike Lee won the Oscar for. And Us had, when at the time that I had scheduled this show, it was at 70 million. It is now at $100 million for opening.
Mhm.
It is the highest grossing sophomore film featuring a female black lead. Us is. And I
Yep.
also read something where Jordan said that he was not interested in casting white leads. He's seen that story. I ain't mad at you for
Yep.
that. I'm really not mad at him for that. And he's also directing, not directing, he's producing a reboot of Candyman, which you mentioned earlier, which is being directed by Nia DaCosta. Nia DaCosta has a film coming out called Little Woods that stars Tessa Thompson. I'll be talking about that because I did an interview for Shadow and Act with Tessa Thompson and Nia for that film. And
Recently?
yes, recently, like last week I did. Mm-hmm. Yep, worked that out. I was like, hey, I'm in my
Yeah.
chair doing my little happy dance. Um, and he's also the voice of the bunny in Toy Story 4. So this is
Right.
somebody who clearly, is using his talents across all lanes and not resting on his laurels in any one place. He really, really is not. So I wanted to talk about in the last little bit of time that we have left is the Twilight Zone. And I know that you didn't see the reboot that he's producing that's coming on CBS All Access tomorrow. It debuts April 1st, CBS All Access, The Twilight Zone, with Jordan Peele being the narrator. But it's based on the old CBS series, so I'm glad they kept it in the CBS family. The old
Right,
CBS
right.
series that was where Rod Serling was the narrator. And I was telling you earlier today that I feel like Jordan's reboot of the Twilight Zone is keeping right in line with what Rod Serling started. Like if Rod Serling was still living today, it literally would be where he left off rather. Jordan Peele picked up the baton and just ran with it. It's one of those stories that the Twilight Zone is one of those shows that is again, it's like horror, suspense, thriller, but it's one of those kind of shows that makes you think about where you are in society. It like makes you look at it with one eye open. And the episode that I saw that they screened for critics was an episode with a comedian. It was De'Ara Kilpatrick, who is the star of American Coco, for which she was
Mm-hmm.
nominated for an Emmy, and we actually interviewed her over here at AfterBuzz TV. And Kamal, I'm not gonna butcher his last name because I don't know how to pronounce it, but but he is the star, and he plays this comedian who is having a slump with his routines, his comedy routines, and
Mm-hmm.
he decides to do observational comedy. And in the process of him doing that, every person that he talks about in his comedy routine disappears, paving the way for him to become more famous and more powerful. And then when he sees that that's happening and that all of the people that he cares about or that he liked the clown were disappearing, then he eventually makes himself disappear. It is freaking awesome. But
Right, right.
and I was telling you that in the comedy club, when they would do these wide shots of the comedy club, there was a mural behind the audience of audience members, some of them dressed up in tuxes. But what I loved, and most people are going to peep this when they see it that are huge fans of the Twilight Zone, you're going to see in that mural all of the characters from all of the different Twilight Zone episodes back in the day, like the ones with the pig people with the pig faces, you see them in
Yes.
that mural. I saw that and I was like, yeah, Jordan Peele, you better do that. I was so excited. It was awesome. But talking about the old ones, do you have a favorite one that you saw of the old ones?
Oh man. I got so many favorites. I don't even know where to begin. Of course, one of my favorites is To Serve Man because it has like that crazy ass twist. Where aliens have come to Earth. They come with a book and they say they come in peace, and the name of the book is To Serve Man. And they're saying all these great flowery things, and they're like, humans come with us to our planet, and as one of the main protagonists is getting on the ship, his receptionist comes around and is like, Mr. Chambers, To Serve Man, it's a cookbook. And he was like, what? But then by then it was too late.
Right.
And I thought that, I just think that that is an amazing one. I don't know a lot of the titles. I just know what
Yeah, me
happens.
neither. I know none of the
Um,
titles, but I just know what happens in the episodes. Like there was that one episode, and I think you'll probably remember this one too. There was this one episode where somebody was flying on a plane and they were seeing crazy people outside the window of the plane, and they kind of
Terror is that Terror at 20,000 feet? I think that's what that's called.
girl.
The
See,
one
now
with
you
the
said you didn't know the titles.
Well, no, because I know the big ones. That's the one with William Shatner, I think.
Yeah, it is with William Shatner. Or and then there was this, and then I love the pig people one where people were just turning. Somebody was going in to have plastic surgery, and everybody was coming out looking like a pig. They had pig snouts, and like the from the nose down, they looked like pigs, and in their eyes all looked the same. Just craziness. But I loved it because it was so creative and it was so out of the box for the time, and I wasn't alive when let's be clear about that too. I wasn't actually alive when the old Twilight Zone was on TV, but I would catch the reruns. There's the pig people. I love the pig people. That is like my favorite episode ever. But I love the fact that Rod Serling and now Jordan Peele have taken this and used and what Jordan Peele is so really um, masterful at is taking where we are in society as a community and making
Mhm.
and taking that into his filmmaking, whether it's for television or whether it's film. Because sometimes when you see the world swirling around you in a crazy way, you don't necessarily know how to respond to it, and you're not even sure that you're seeing what you're seeing. You know what I mean? But then when you
Right.
see it in a film or you see it on television, it makes you think. You're like, oh, so when I watched that press conference, this is what that meant. And you're like, okay, I can kind of get with that. It's just, it is so incredibly wonderful. And I love everything about it. And I,
I mean, that's what Twilight Zone has always been about.
mm
Connection, and I can see the connection between Jordan Peele's work and Rod Serling, where it's like,
mm,
humanity and reality is like the real horror show. You
exactly.
don't have to you
Exactly.
don't have to make up, monsters and everything like that, because
Exactly.
sometimes we can be the monsters. And sometimes when you manipulate our reality, it's a lot scarier than any Freddy Krueger or, you know, Jason Voorhees that you could create.
Absolutely.
Um,
And that's the best way to say it. And let me just say, not for nothing, but I read somewhere that Jordan was being compared to Hitchcock. Let me just say, I said it first. I said it first. I'm just saying. I said that Jordan Peele was like the black Alfred Hitchcock. And when we were at South by, because Lupita Nyong'o was in two horror films, I'm like, and she the black Tippi Hedren. Like, how you guys? How you gonna be in like two horror movies at the same festival? That was funny as hell to me. I kind of love that. Oh, but girl, I love that I decided to do this retrospective. I literally decided to do this retrospective based on something I saw you tweet on Twitter, straight up. So I was
what?
like, yes,
What?
I don't even remember what it was, but I saw it and I was like, oh, I got to reach out to Valerie and let's just do a, because I had a whole different plan for today. And I was like, no, I want to do a retrospective on Jordan Peele and had that conversation with Valerie because I knew it was going to be awesome and it has been. And I'm so grateful that you agreed because I know it's 3 hours ahead of you. You're in Hampton, Virginia.
Oh
And
no, ma'am.
no, where
I'm
you
in New
at?
York.
New
I
York.
haven't been in
Well,
Virginia.
East Coast, same difference, child. You on the East Coast,
Okay.
right? All right. So you in the East Coast, you in New York.
Yeah, I was gonna say, don't put Virginia on me. I don't.
You like
No, ma'am.
you like don't be putting that in my don't be putting that in my circumference. But
Yep. No,
I
ma'am.
but you're in New York City, so you're 3 hours ahead of us here in LA. And I love the fact that you took time out of your Sunday evening to, call up in here and have this conversation so that we could chat. Because we could have had this conversation in private. We could have had it at another film festival, but I felt like it was really important to have it here so that other people could hear it, so that other people could be in on the conversation, like my folks in the chat room, our girl Katia. Michael B is always in my chat room, Jenna James and Yasna. They always come and they always support, and I appreciate them wholeheartedly. I will ask this one question before we sign off. Michael B wanted to know, is there a site where you can contact various critics to review your movie in the midst of pre-production and would love to have a one-stop shop to find them? Rotten Tomatoes is that right now, Michael B, I think. Do you know of anything else that might be that, Valerie?
Um, Critics Guild.
Okay, Critics
Um,
Guild.
they can always, email the info to the
Okay,
Critics Guild, because I know the one of the Critics Guilds I'm a part of right now does that.
okay,
Like, our director will receive stuff and disseminate it out, and people make the choice whether or not they want to review or not.
okay,
That discussion. You know what? When you're done with this, call me, because
okay.
we can have this discussion, and I can tell you some private thoughts on that,
No
because
worries.
it was the debate that literally happened today on Twitter.
Ooh, okay. I can't wait.
Today.
I cannot wait. Well, girl, we're gonna sign off. I want everybody to be able to find you. So where can they find you online?
Well, you can find me on Twitter at Valerie Complex, all one word, Valerie, Complex, Complex, and Instagram at Valerie underscore complex, same spelling. And now my website is under construction, but for future reference, it's just valeriecomplex.com.
Cool. Well, I am your girl, Carla Renata, aka the Curvy Film Critic. I thank Valerie Complex so fantabulously, wonderfully, and wholeheartedly. Like, I can't even find a whole lot of adjectives to thank you for coming here today. But you can find me across all social media platforms at The Curvy Critic. That would be Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, everything. You can find me right after this at 6 o'clock over at AfterBuzz TV for the General Hospital After Show. You can find all of my reviews at thecurvyfilmcritic.com. And if you want to check out The Matrix, remember it's celebrating 20 years. Romancing the Stone is celebrating 35. And The Highwaymen is streaming on Netflix right now. Until next week, this is your girl, Carla Renata, a.k.a. The Curvy Film Critic. Love, peace, and hair grease until the next time. Bye!
On behalf of our BHL staff, we would like to thank you for tuning in to Black Hollywood Live, the world's first digital broadcast network devoted entirely to urban entertainment and pop culture. Check out our Black Hollywood Live YouTube page for even more great programming and amazing content. And be sure to subscribe and like our channel when you do. I'm your BHL host, Nakia Monet, and you can find me on all social media at Kiki Boom Boom or at Black Hollywood Live. Black Hollywood Live, Hollywood redefined.
The views expressed here are those of the host only and do not necessarily reflect the views of BHL or its owners or principals.